Let's talk about this new book then called Gita, The Battle of the Worlds, which is published this week. The authors Sonal, Sachdev, Patel and her friend author Jemma Kattan. They join me now. Hello, Jemma and Sonal.
Hello, thanks for having us.
There.
Right, hi. So basically, I'm going to talk to Vasanthi Shankar very, very shortly. She teaches English. She has a Hindu background and she's been sort of looking at the book. But before then, tell us a little bit about the book and how it came about then. Who's going to start off first?
The book came about because many of your listeners may have read the Gita, but it's quite a heavy and dense text and it can be quite tricky to understand. So when my children were young, I wanted to take these amazing messages of the Gita and explain it to them in a way that they would actually be able to relate to. And that's when I approached Jemma and explained the interpretation that was based on the teachings of my guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, where he explained that the battle that takes place in the Gita, that is traditionally between these two warring families, is actually a battle that takes place within ourselves every day, between our good tendencies and our bad. And then Jemma can maybe tell you a bit more about how we brought that into a story that's relevant for children.
Yeah, so the thing that I kind of heard from Sonal is that she was so passionate about sharing this message with children in a way that they could really relate to. And so what I was looking for as a storyteller was, what's the story? Can we convey this in a way that's compelling and they will want to choose to pick up the book? And the more we talked about it, I realized that this idea of the internal battle, and Yogananda also suggests that meditation is the tool by which to approach this battle. Those things in themselves were a story. And so we thought about the idea of actually putting this traditional epic battle inside the body of a young boy who is struggling with his emotions. In our book, the boy Dev, he's recently lost his father, and that's obviously thrown him into a state of turmoil. So through that, we can then actually follow the characters, and hopefully the reader comes with us on this journey of meditation, actually up the boy's spine through the chakras, which in meditation are centers of energy in the body, and in our book become these magical realms full of all sorts of creatures and challenges to overcome. And our hope is that through that, we've been able to then start exploring some of the more difficult messages from the Gita, but through a compelling adventure story.
And what sort of age group are you targeting?
So we're targeting around, if they're reading themselves, around 10 plus. But I know Jemma and I both have younger children than that, and we've read it to them. So it's sort of early 10 and then early teens.
Okay. Should we listen to Vasanthi Shankar and see what she made of the book? Now, Vasanthi has a Hindu background and she's a teacher of English and Indian classical dance. So she knows a lot about children and reading and also about the religion as well. And she takes part in interfaith activities as well. And this is what she had to say.
I'm Vasanthi Shankar and I teach English to non-native speakers. I teach Indian classical dance at the Hindu Community Center. I am a steering committee member of Cheltenham Interfaith. Some of the hats that I don.
Right. Tell me about this book, Gita. What's your first impression of it?
My first impression of the book was that it was written from a different perspective. That of an internal struggle within a little boy who's just lost his father. So I thought that the concept was actually very good.
And do you think children, I think it's targeting children from the age of 8 to 14, what do you think? Will they be able to understand the concepts that are in the book?
The basic concept, yes, that children who are overcoming loss or facing any kind of struggle in their lives, that sometimes they behave in such a way that there's good and bad in everyone. And so sometimes the bad elements rise to the fore because children don't understand how to process what they're dealing with. So in that way, yes, I think all children should be able to understand what is going on in the book. But some more obscure thoughts about doing your duty without karmanyevadhikarasye may be a little too high for them.
What about the actual aspect of religion? Do you think they can understand Hinduism in a better way? Will it help them understand Hinduism?
The Gita itself is not about Hinduism, but more about Sanatana Dharma, which is like a way of life. So the Gita is not really a very religious book, though it's a very sacred text for us. I don't know whether they can really understand Hinduism better. They can understand how Hinduism wants us to lead our lives better.
And what do you think of the price of it? It's $6.99.
$6.99 is totally all right, because no book costs less than £7 or £8.
Yeah, well, that's Vasanthi Shankar. Her views on the book, the Gita, the Battle of the Worlds. We'll come back to Sonal and Jemma, who are actually the authors of the book, in a few moments. You're listening to me, Manny Masih. We're talking about this book called Gita, The Battle of the Worlds, which is published this week. We've had Vasanthi Shankar from Cheltenham. She put her views forward as to what she thought of the book. And I'm talking to the authors, Sonal and Jemma. And so, Sonal, what do you think of what Vasanthi was saying about the book, that it's Gita is more of a way of life than religion? The Bhagavad...
I think she really hit the nail on the head, and that's what we talk about. That it's really about winning this battle that takes place within us every day. And she also mentioned the universality of the message, which again is something that is a real focus of our book, with particularly talking about meditation being a powerful tool for all children, not just of Hindi background.
Jemma, what did you think of what Vasanthi was saying?
Yeah, well, that was something I was picking up on as well, is that actually that kind of universality of it is something that really attracted me to the story. I come from a Jewish background, and I've been reading this to my 7-year-old daughter. And from it, we've had so many conversations about Arjun and the good and the bad tendencies, and really kind of diving into some of the deeper messages when she's having big emotions and was, struggling with things. And it's amazing to me how, this comes from a Hindu text, but it's really connected with her. And I think that's something that is wonderful, that we can share tales from different religions with people from all backgrounds.
I went to a book award today, actually. Somebody, a lady called Chitra, who's a writer of children's books, that she won an award today. And I was just sort of talking to some of the people there. We got so many books that actually talk about good over evil, especially for children. And yet we still have children who get into trouble in life, crime and other sort of things that go wrong in their lives. How come?
It's because I think that we're too busy talking about it, and we're not giving them actionable tools for what they can do differently from tomorrow to change. It's different if you're telling them a story which they feel is removed and it's not part of their life. And a really important part of this book, Gita, Battle of the Worlds, is helping children to identify with the characters and realise that this is a message for them, and it's something that can cause them to actually change the way that they're acting to bring about different emotions in their own lives.
Jemma, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, a similar point. I think a lot of the time we focus on the external, and actually looking, being a little more introspective and looking at the battle taking place within, and how we choose to make good choices for ourselves and our lives and to affect other people. I think that's a really good beginning. And of course, we're not going to solve all the world's ills, but just to encourage children to take that moment of reflection is something that I hope might be helpful.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of similarities. I'm not a Hindu, but I'm not a Muslim either. But I do know that when Muslims talk about jihad, it's very similar to that. And it's more of a battle within yourself to do the right thing than to try to, get everyone else to do the right thing, if you know what I mean. If you can do that, that'll be a better world, wouldn't it?
Very much. That was actually when we first started having conversations about this. There's a point in the original Gita where Krishna comes to the battlefield and he talks to the noble warrior Arjun, who's having a moment of hesitation, and he's not sure if he wants to fight the enemy. And Krishna tells him that he has a duty to fight. And, that can sound like quite a controversial sentiment in exactly the way you've been talking about. But this interpretation, which tells us this is the metaphor, this is about the internal battle within ourselves, that transforms the way that we see that that part of the Gita, and is something that I think really relates to so much of life.
And Manny, it was really important to us not to preach to children, not to give them a long list of you should do this and you shouldn't do that, but rather to show them that if we act or feel in a certain way, this is how the environment or the characters might manifest. And that's what's so exciting about this story that Sanjay goes on up the spine of Dev, because he sees the actions, and they're these two parallel stories that are happening at the same time, which are intrinsically linked, not just on the physical level, but on the emotional and spiritual level as well.
And I think it reminds me of this book I read about 20 years ago, and they were talking about how many times we tell our children no. Rather than actually, like you said, giving them practical advice as to how they should be doing things, we say, no, don't do that. No, don't do this. And no, don't do that. Yeah, I think absolutely right. We could go on.
We're both mothers of young children, so that resonates with us too, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jemma and Sonal, very interesting talking to you. Let's hope the book sells a lot, and is it published now, isn't it?
Yes, it was out.
Yes, it is, and
yeah,
it's
out this
number
week.
26 on Amazon today, so we're pleased to see that.
Excellent. Thank you very much for both of you for joining us on the programme.
Thank you
very much.
There we are. Gita, The Battle of the Worlds. That's the name of the book.